You have been chasing a feeling. You've been told that to attract money, you must vibrate at a high frequency, a state of constant joy, excitement, and ecstatic bliss. You have tried to live in that peak state, forcing yourself to feel good, and you have exhausted yourself in the process. But what if the entire premise is wrong? What if the frequency of true, sustainable abundance isn't a volatile, high-pitched peak, but a deep, calm, and unshakably stable hum? This story will reveal the profound, energetic truth about money. It will show you why chasing high-vibe states creates financial chaos, and it will give you the key to locking in the one frequency that truly creates lasting wealth: the frequency of stability. Sofia was a spiritual adrenaline junkie. At 34, she was a brilliant but perpetually struggling freelance brand strategist from Barcelona. Her life was a roller coaster of energetic peaks and devastating troughs. She was a master of the high-vibe manifestation hustle. She could work herself into a state of ecstatic certainty, attracting a massive, lucrative client with her infectious, high-flying energy. For a few weeks, she would be on top of the world, spending lavishly, living in the peak state she believed was the key to wealth. But inevitably, the peak would be followed by a crash. The client project would end, no new work would appear, and she would find herself in a state of sheer panic, her bank account dwindling, her energy depleted, her life a chaotic cycle of feast and famine. Her deepest desire was not just for wealth, but for peace. She dreamed of a life of quiet, consistent, and graceful abundance. A life where she could create from a place of calm inspiration, not frantic, high-stakes energy. A life where she could trust that the flow of money was a steady, reliable river, not a series of unpredictable flash floods and terrifying droughts. She dreamed of the feeling of being financially safe. Her antagonist was her own deeply ingrained limiting belief: money is unstable. This belief was a legacy from her family. Her father was a brilliant artist who lived a life of financial chaos, his moods and his income swinging wildly from one extreme to another. Sofia had unconsciously recreated his pattern, mistaking the manic energy of the upswing for the desirable money frequency. She was addicted to the peak because it was the only time she felt powerful, but she was terrified of the trough that she knew, on a cellular level, would always follow. Her spiritual practice was not creating stability, it was amplifying the very volatility she longed to escape. Is she doomed to repeat this chaotic pattern, her life forever tied to this exhausting, energetic roller coaster? Or is there a different way, a forgotten path that leads not to the volatile peaks of temporary wealth, a path that can be found in the most stable, grounded, and ancient place she could possibly imagine? If you have ever been exhausted by the spiritual pressure to constantly be positive and raise your vibration around money, subscribe. This story is your permission to get off the roller coaster. Part 1. The latest crash was the worst yet. After a 3-month high, where Sofia had landed her biggest client ever and lived as if money were no object, the project ended abruptly. 2 other potential projects fell through in the same week. The financial floor fell out from under her. This was the closing of the previous loop. The feast and famine cycle had reached a breaking point. Deeply in debt from her high-vibe spending spree and facing a barren client pipeline, she was in a state of pure, cortisol-fueled panic. She had to give up her chic Barcelona apartment. With nowhere else to go, she packed her bags and accepted a humiliating offer from her estranged aunt Elvira to come and stay with her for a while. The new loop opened as she stepped off a dusty bus in a small, ancient village nestled in the Picos de Europa mountains of Asturias, in the green, Celtic heart of northern Spain. This was a world away from the trendy, fast-paced energy of Barcelona. It was a place of deep, old, and unshakable stability. The houses were made of stone, centuries old, built to withstand the mountain winters. The rhythm of life was dictated by the seasons, not by market trends. It was a place where nothing happened quickly. Her Aunt Elvira was a woman who seemed to be carved from the same stone as her house. She was in her late 60s, a widow who ran a small, self-sufficient farm, a few dairy cows, a flock of chickens, a massive vegetable garden, and a world-renowned herd of pedigree cheese-making goats. She was not a warm or effusive woman. She was grounded, practical, and deeply rooted in her world. There was a profound stillness about her, a sense of stability that Sofia found both deeply comforting and intensely intimidating. We learn here that Sofia had always seen her aunt's life as small, boring, and unambitious, the very antithesis of the expansive, exciting life she was trying to manifest. The first few weeks were a form of quiet torture for Sofia. There was no Wi-Fi. Her phone had no signal. There were no yoga studios, no crystal shops, no high-vibe anything. There was only the slow, repetitive, and deeply grounding rhythm of the farm. Elvira did not coddle her. She put Sofia to work. Mucking out the goat pen. Waking at 5 a.m. to milk the cows. Weeding the endless rows of vegetables. For Sofia, whose work had always been intellectual and energetic, the physical, earthy, and often monotonous labor was a shock to her system. One afternoon, frustrated and exhausted, Sofia tried to explain her manifestation philosophy to her aunt. She talked about frequencies, vibrations, and the law of attraction. Elvira listened patiently, shelling beans into a large ceramic bowl. "That is a very complicated way to say a very simple thing," she said when Sofia had finished, her voice calm and steady as a river. "You are trying to catch butterflies with a storm. Abundance is not a butterfly. It is an oak tree. It does not fly. It grows. And it grows from one thing: good soil. Your soil is poor, child. You have been trying to grow a forest on a pile of rocks." She has been stripped of all her tools and forced into a world that operates on a completely different set of energetic principles. What is this good soil her aunt speaks of, and how can a woman addicted to the storm possibly learn the slow, silent, and profound wisdom of the oak tree? Part 2. Sofia tried to understand her aunt's cryptic lesson, but her entire being was screaming in resistance. This closed the previous loop. She was now a reluctant student of a new philosophy. The new loop of conflict began with the daily, grinding reality of the farm work. Her mind, accustomed to the quick hits of inspiration and the adrenaline of deadlines, rebelled against the slow, patient, and often boring rhythm of agricultural life. Weeding the garden was not a high-vibe activity. Mending a fence was not a peak experience. Her internal conflict raged. Her spiritual hustle mindset, the voice of her antagonist, was relentless. "This is a waste of your talent," it would whisper as she churned butter. "You are a six-figure brand strategist, not a milkmaid. You should be networking, creating content, raising your vibration. You are moving backwards. You are becoming small and insignificant." She felt a profound sense of failure. She was not manifesting abundance. She was living in a state of total lack, her designer clothes stained with mud, her hands rough and calloused. The external conflict arrived in the form of a notification on her laptop, which she could only access by hiking to the top of a hill for a weak signal. It was a post from a rival strategist in Barcelona, a woman named Clara, announcing a massive new contract with a luxury brand, a client Sofia had desperately wanted. The post was full of high-vibe language about quantum leaps and embodying wealth. It was a dagger to Sofia's heart. It was proof that the high-frequency hustle worked, and that she had lost her magic. The news sent her into a spiral of despair, confirming her deepest fear: she had made a terrible mistake by coming here. She confronted Elvira in the cheesemaking room, a cool, quiet space that smelled of salt and aging milk. "It's not working," Sofia said, her voice cracking with desperation. "I'm doing all this grounding, and I am broker and more miserable than ever. My competitor just landed the contract of a lifetime. She's up there, on the peak, and I'm down here, in the dirt." Elvira was calmly turning a large wheel of cheese, wiping it down with a brine-soaked cloth. She did not stop her work. "You are looking for evidence in the wrong place," she said, her voice even. "You are looking for the fruit on the day you planted the seed. The work is not in the harvest. The work is in the soil. Today, your work is to turn the cheese. Tomorrow, you will turn the cheese. The day after, you will turn the cheese. This is the practice. You are not building a feeling. You are building a foundation. You are building stability. The high peaks are for the lightning. The deep roots are for the oak. She is being asked to find value in the mundane, to see the repetitive, boring work as the very foundation of the wealth she craves. Can she possibly let go of her need for instant results and surrender to this slow, deep, and profoundly unglamorous process of building her own energetic foundation? Part 3. Sofia's life settled into a rhythm that was both maddening and, in a strange way, deeply calming. The deadline-driven, high-stakes world of her past was replaced by the cyclical, season-driven world of the farm. The loop of her initial resistance was closed, but a new, more subtle loop opened, the challenge of living in this new rhythm without going crazy. A key sub-trauma developed around Elvira's small but incredibly successful cheese-making business. Sofia, with her branding expertise, was initially horrified by her aunt's business practices. Elvira had no website. She had no social media presence. She had a waiting list of clients, Michelin-starred restaurants and specialty shops from all over Europe, that was 2 years long. She turned down new clients constantly. She never once raised her prices to meet the insane demand. This was a complete violation of every business principle Sofia had ever learned. You could be a millionaire. Sofia insisted one evening, after watching her aunt politely decline a massive order from a famous London food hall. You are leaving so much money on the table. My table is full, Elvira replied simply, gesturing to their simple but abundant dinner, all sourced from their farm. I have enough. The goats have enough. The land has enough. My goal is not to have the biggest business. It is to have the most stable one. If I take on too many orders, the quality will suffer. I will be stressed. The goats will be stressed. The cheese will taste of anxiety. The money on the table is not worth the chaos it would invite into my life. Stability is the true wealth, Sofia, not growth. This was a radical, revolutionary concept for Sofia. She had always equated more with better, growth with success. Her only connection to her old life was a weekly, staticky phone call with her father, the artist. He was in one of his down cycles, complaining about money, about the lack of inspiration. In her conversations with him, Sofia began to hear the echo of her own old patterns, the same frantic energy, the same desperation. She saw, with a painful clarity, the generational trauma of financial instability that she had been unconsciously reenacting. This realization was a crucial and painful part of her journey. She was not just healing herself, she was breaking a cycle. The days turned into a month, then 2. Sofia's body changed. She was stronger, leaner. Her hands, though calloused, no longer trembled. Her frantic, anxious energy was slowly being replaced by a quiet, steady presence. She was still broke. She still had no clients. But something deep within her was beginning to change. She is living in a masterclass of sustainable, stable wealth, a reality that defies all her old beliefs. But she is still a woman with her own dreams and ambitions. How can she apply this ancient, agrarian wisdom to her own modern, creative life? What is the bridge between the stability of the cheese and the branding agency of her dreams? Part 4. The turning point did not arrive with a flash of lightning or a dramatic event. It arrived on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday morning, in the quiet, rhythmic work of milking the cows. The loop of her slow, grudging acceptance was about to close, and the loop of her true embodiment would begin. She was in the barn, the air warm and smelling of hay and milk. The sun was just rising, casting long, golden shafts of light through the old wooden slats. She sat on the low stool, her head resting against the warm, solid flank of a cow named Flora. Her hands moved in the familiar, practiced rhythm of the milking, a rhythm she could now do in her sleep. Squeeze, pull, release. Squeeze, pull, release. The sound of the milk hitting the metal pail was a steady, percussive beat. Her mind, for the first time in what felt like her entire life, was completely silent. It wasn't the forced, detached silence of her old meditations. It was a rich, full, and deeply peaceful silence. In that moment of pure, embodied presence, she was not Sofia, the failed brand strategist. She was not the niece, the daughter, the debtor. She was just a pair of hands, a beating heart, and a calm breath, in perfect rhythm with another living being. And in That silent, rhythmic space, she felt it. It was not a high-flying, ecstatic joy. It was a feeling of such profound, unshakable, and deeply peaceful stability that it felt like the ground of being itself. It was the feeling of the mountains, of the ancient stone of the house, of the slow, steady growth of the oak tree. It was a hum, not a scream. It was a deep, resonant, C major chord at the very center of her being. She realized with a clarity that was like a physical shock, this is it. This is the money frequency. It was not about excitement. It was about safety. It was not about peaks. It was about presence. It was the feeling of being so completely and utterly provided for in the present moment that there was no need to project into a frantic future. A quote from the mystic Neville Goddard, which had always confused her, suddenly became the simplest truth in the world, the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The wish was not for $1 million. The wish was for the feeling of safety that $1 million was supposed to provide. And she had it. Right now. For free. In a barn, with her head against a cow. She has had the direct, cellular experience. She has found the frequency. It is not an idea, it is a feeling, a state of being she now knows how to access. This changes everything. But how does one build a modern, creative business from a feeling discovered while milking a cow? What is the first practical step she will take from this new, profoundly stable place? This moment of deep, embodied realization has grounded you? Subscribe for more stories that reveal the true frequency of abundance. Part 5. The experience in the barn was a permanent recalibration of Sofia's energetic system. The previous loop closed, she had found the stable frequency. Now, she had to live from it. She walked out of the barn and into the sunrise, and the world looked the same, but her experience of it was completely different. The frantic, needy, chasing energy was gone. She was no longer a hungry ghost, trying to attract things to fill her emptiness. She was a full vessel. Her first action was to approach her aunt, not as a desperate niece, but as a peer. "Elvira," she said, her voice full of a new, quiet confidence. "I want to help you with the cheese business. Not to make it bigger. To make it stronger. To tell its story." Elvira looked at her, saw the change in her eyes, and for the first time, she gave Sofia a broad, genuine smile. "I thought you would never ask," she said. The consequences of this shift were profound. Sofia spent the next month applying her branding genius to her aunt's business, but from her new state of being. She didn't create a flashy logo or a slick ad campaign. She created a simple, elegant website that told the story of the farm, of the goats, of the slow, patient process. She filmed beautiful, short videos of her aunt's hands turning the cheese, of the cows grazing in the mountain pasture. She was not selling a product. She was transmitting the frequency of stability, of authenticity, of terroir. The work was a joy, flowing from a place of deep, calm inspiration. Her financial situation had not changed. She was still broke. But her relationship with money had been healed at the root. She no longer saw it as a volatile, unpredictable force to be courted and feared. She saw it as a natural byproduct of providing true, stable value to the world. She trusted, on a cellular level, that just as the rain fell and the grass grew, abundance would flow to her now that her own soil was rich and stable. She stopped hiking to the top of the hill to check for emails. She let go of her old life completely. She was fully present in her new one, her days filled with a rhythm of physical work on the farm and creative work on the brand. She is creating her most authentic work ever, not for a client, but for her own family, from a place of pure inspiration. She has found her stability, but she is still living a borrowed life. Will this new, powerful, energetic broadcast be noticed by the outside world? Will a tangible opportunity emerge from her new state of being? Part 6. For 2 months, Sofia lived in this new, integrated rhythm. The website for Quesos Elvira went live. It was simple, beautiful, and deeply authentic. This was her first act of creation from her new state of being, and it was a masterpiece of quiet confidence. But this was also the final test, the one promised in the last chapter. She had put her new frequency out into the world. Would the world respond? The days after the launch were quiet. Too quiet. Her old anxiety, the ghost of her feast or famine programming, tried to creep back in. See? It whispered. The world doesn't want slow and stable. It wants new and exciting. You have become small and boring. Clara is probably on a yacht in Ibiza, and you are here, waiting for someone to notice your cheese website. This was her dark night of the soul, the final battle with her inherited patterns. The temptation to fall back into the hustle, to start frantically promoting the website, to try to force a result, was immense. This was the moment where she had to prove that her transformation was real. She consolidated her growth by surrendering even more deeply. Instead of panicking, she went back to her foundation. She spent more time in the garden, feeling the earth. She spent more time with the animals, absorbing their simple, present-moment energy. She focused on the physical, tangible reality of the farm, on the steady, reliable rhythm of her daily chores. She was consciously and deliberately choosing the frequency of stability over the frequency of fear. She was proving to herself, and to the universe, that her state of being was not conditional on external results. She had locked it in. She had become the oak tree, content to simply be, trusting in the inevitable cycle of the seasons. She has faced the terrifying silence of the void and has chosen to respond not with fear, but with an even deeper trust in her own stability. She has become the frequency. But a frequency is a broadcast. Who is listening, and what message are they about to send back? Part 7. The response, when it came, was not a flood, but a single perfect drop of rain. It was an email. Not from a potential client, but from a woman named Isabel, a journalist for El Comedista, the highly respected food and culture supplement of Spain's leading newspaper, El País. The subject line was simply, "The feeling of your website." Dear Sofia, the email began. I stumbled upon your website for your aunt's cheese. I have never in my life been so moved by a commercial website. It is more than a website. It is a poem. It made me feel a sense of peace and nostalgia for a life I have never lived. I must tell this story. Not just the story of the cheese, but the story of the person who created this.
Feeling. Would you and your aunt be open to an interview for a feature article? The loop of her patient waiting was closed. The new loop, the one leading to the climax, opened with a jolt of quiet, profound validation. The universe had not responded with a client, with money. It had responded with a storyteller, a person who had perfectly received the frequencies she was broadcasting. Sofia and Elvira agreed. The week leading up to the interview was not one of frantic preparation. It was one of continued stability. Sofia did not try to craft the perfect marketing message. She simply trusted that their authentic story was enough. The journalist, Isabel, arrived, a sharp, intelligent woman from Madrid, who seemed to shed her city stress the moment she stepped onto the farm. She didn't just want to interview them. She wanted to experience their life. She spent 3 days with them, milking the cows, weeding the garden, and sitting in the quiet, fragrant cheese room. She was not just reporting a story, she was absorbing a frequency. The storyteller has arrived. The stage is set. This is not just a chance for publicity. It is a chance to broadcast their philosophy of stability to the entire country. Will the story they tell capture the magic of their reality, and will a world addicted to speed and growth be able to hear its quiet, powerful message? Part 8 of the article was published 2 weeks later. It was the cover story of the Sunday supplement. The headline was not about cheese. It was, "The richest woman in Spain lives on a mountain and has no Wi-Fi." The story was a masterpiece. Isabel had captured not just the details of the farm, but the feeling, the energy, the profound wisdom of Elvira's philosophy of stability. She wrote about Sofia's journey from the igby hustle of Barcelona to the deep, slow rhythm of the mountains. She described the website not as a branding tool, but as a piece of art, a portal to peace. The response was instantaneous and overwhelming. But it was not the kind of response Sofia had ever known before. The farm was flooded with emails, but they were not from people just trying to buy cheese. They were from people who wanted to connect with the feeling. There were emails from burnt-out chefs who wanted to come and work on the farm for free, used to learn the rhythm. There were emails from architects who wanted to study the old stone barn. There were emails from CEOs of major corporations who wrote, "I have everything, but I don't have what you want us. How do I get it?" And then came the email that would change everything. It was from a large, family-owned organic food cooperative, one of the most respected brands in Spain, known for its deep commitment to sustainability and authentic storytelling. "We have been searching for a new brand strategist for 2 years," the email read. "We have met with all the top agencies in Madrid and Barcelona. They all talk about growth and disruption. You are the first person we have heard who talks about stability. You do not just understand branding, you understand the soul of a brand. We do not want to hire you for a single project. We want to offer you a permanent, high-level strategic partnership to guide the entire future of our brand's story. We do not want your old energy. We want the energy of this farm." The offer was staggering. It was more money than she had ever dreamed of, but it was also a contract for her soul, for her new way of being. The promise of the introduction was fulfilled. The money frequency was not a high, frantic peak. It was the deep, calm, resonant hum of her own unshakable stability, a frequency she had learned not by reaching for the sky, but by rooting herself in the earth. The manifestation has arrived, bigger and more aligned than anything she could have forced. But what happens when the quiet wisdom of the mountain is brought into the heart of the national marketplace? How does one maintain stability in the face of explosive success? Part 9. Sofia accepted the partnership. But she did it on her own terms. She did not move back to the city. She established her agency, Agencia Aroeira, the OAC Agency, in a beautifully restored stone farmhouse in her own village. She hired a small, dedicated team of people who, like her, were refugees from the corporate hustle, people who understood that the quality of their energy was the most important asset they had. Her work with the organic cooperative was revolutionary. She helped them build a brand story that was so authentic, so deeply rooted in the values of stability and sustainability, that it created a new benchmark for the entire industry. Her own life became a beautiful expression of the principles she had learned. She was a wealthy woman, but her wealth was quiet, peaceful, and deeply nourishing. It allowed her to expand her own farm, turning it into an educational foundation where people from all walks of life could come to learn the forgotten rhythms of the earth. Her relationship with her father healed, he came to visit, and in the quiet stability of the farm, he began to paint again, his work infused with a new sense of peace. Sofia finally understood the great secret of manifestation. The universe is not a wild, chaotic storm to be tamed. It is a vast, fertile field. It does not respond to the loudest shouts or the most desperate prayers. It responds to the quality of the soil. By learning to cultivate her own inner state of stability, she had become the good soil. And now, anything she wished to plant could not help but grow. She no longer chased the butterflies of excitement, she tended to the deep, unshakable roots of her own oak tree. Her journey has created a new model of wealth, one based on inner peace, not outer striving. But what is the next season for a soul who has learned to grow like an oak tree? We see Sofia a year later, walking through the big pasture meadows with her aunt. Elvira is older now, leaning lightly on Sofia's arm. They are checking on the herd of goats, who are grazing peacefully under the shade of a massive ancient oak tree. "You have good roots now, child," Elvira says, looking at Sofia with eyes full of love and pride. Sofia looks out at the vast, stable, and profoundly abundant landscape, the landscape that is now a perfect mirror of her own inner state. "I had a good teachers," she replies, and they smile, to women who understand the quiet, powerful, and deeply stable frequency of true wealth. She learned that the path to abundance was not to fly higher, but to root deeper. What frantic, high-flying energy in your life is asking to be grounded in the simple, profound stability of the earth? The pressure to raise your vibration can be a form of spiritual violence, a denial of our profound human need for safety and stability. True, lasting abundance is not built on a
volatile peak of emotion. It is built on the calm, steady, and resilient foundation of a regulated nervous system. Your challenge is this: for 1 week, let go of trying to feel good, and focus instead on feeling safe. Find one simple, grounding activity, walking barefoot, deep breathing, even just holding a warm cup of tea, and give it your full, undivided attention for 5 minutes a day. Cultivate your soil. What did you notice? Share your chosen stability practice in the comments below. 4 more stories that will help you get off the manifestation roller coaster and lock in the frequency of true, sustainable abundance. Make sure you subscribe and join this grounded community.